The rain-slicked streets of Portland gleamed under the gray sky as I stepped out of the elevator, my canvas tote slung over my shoulder, heavier with the weight of 5 years than the few items it held. I'm Raya Harper, or I was, until 10 minutes ago, the lead systems architect at Nexus Corp. Now, I'm just Raya, a 32-year-old woman clutching a severance agreement, the ink of my signature still fresh, like a wound that hasn't yet started to sting. Nathan Caldwell's office had been as polished as his persona, glass walls, a desk of reclaimed wood, and a view of the Willamette River that screamed success. He didn't look up from his laptop when he fired me, his voice carrying that practice charm he used on investors. "Nobody will care about your code, Raya," he said, his eyes fixed on the screen, as if I were already gone. "Sign here, and we'll call it even." I did, my hand steady despite the tightening in my chest, the words echoing like a slap. Professional to the end, that's me, always the one to keep it together, even when the ground shifts beneath. 5 years ago, I walked into Nexus Corp's cramped warehouse office, a converted space in southeast Portland where the heat didn't work and the coffee machine was our only luxury. I built their data security platform from scratch, line by painstaking line, while Nathan pitched his vision to anyone who'd listen. My code, my architecture, was the reason we secured $10 million in series of funding, the reason those glass walls now framed his office. And yet, here I was, dismissed with a check and a non-disclosure agreement, my contributions reduced to a footnote he assumed no one would read. I grew up in a small Oregon town, watching my mother, a brilliant coder, pour her soul into an encryption algorithm only to have her name erased when her company went public. She'd come home, her eyes hollow, and tell me, "Raya, always keep receipts of your work. They'll try to take it from you." I swore I'd never let that happen, but as I stood in the lobby, the hum of Nexus Corp's open plan office behind me, I felt her ghost beside me, whispering that I should have known better. The rain tapped my shoulders as I walked to my car, the city's pulse steady despite the churn in my gut. Nathan's words, "Nobody will care," looped in my mind, but they didn't land as truth. Every line of that security platform bore my mark, my late nights, my mother's lessons. I wasn't angry, not yet. But as I slid into the driver's seat, a clarity settled in, sharp as the Portland air. They didn't know what they'd just lost, but they would. And I'd be ready when they did. The Nexus Corp office buzzed behind me as I crossed the open plan floor, the clatter of keyboards a familiar hymn. Engineers hunched over monitors, their screens glowing with lines of my code, the intricate security protocol that kept our clients' data untouchable. I'd written it in those early days, back when we worked out of a drafty warehouse in southeast Portland, the kind of place where you could see your breath in winter. I'd code through the night, a cheap fan humming, my fingers flying as sweat beaded on my brow. That protocol was the company's heartbeat, and every beat was mine. I caught Lucas Chen's eye, a junior engineer I'd mentored, his desk cluttered with energy drink cans. "Leaving early, Raya," he called, his grin oblivious to the severance papers in my tote. "Something like that," I said, forcing a smile that felt like a mask. My chest ached, not with anger, but with the weight of what I was leaving behind. 5 years, distilled into a plant, a photo of my niece, and a chipped coffee mug. I could have filled a museum with the sleepless nights, the breakthroughs, the moments I'd made Nexus Corp possible. My mother's voice echoed again, "Keep receipts, Raya." She'd taught me to document everything, a habit born from her own erasure. My system architecture was a labyrinth of my own design, documented in shorthand only I could unravel, notes scrawled in a code of my own making, indecipherable to anyone who hadn't lived inside my head. I'd meant to write a proper guide, but urgent deadlines always took precedence. Now, standing by the elevator, I realized that oversight was my shield. Nathan thought he could erase me, but every line of that platform screamed my name. As the doors slid shut, cutting off the office's hum, a quiet certainty bloomed. They'd need me soon, and I'd be ready. My mother's story was my shadow, always trailing me. She'd been a coder in the 90s, her encryption algorithm a spark of genius that lit up a small Oregon firm. When they sold, her name was scrubbed from the press releases, her work claimed by men in suits. I was 12, watching her fold laundry with hands that should have been coding, her silence louder than any words. "Don't let them steal you, Raya," she'd said. I carried that vow into Nexus Core, guarding my work like a treasure. 3 weeks before Nathan fired me, I'd sensed the shift, whispers in the break room, Nathan parading Ryan Kessler, the new consultant, before investors like a shiny trophy. I wasn't paranoid. I was my mother's daughter. I'd emailed Sarah Bennett, my college friend turned IP attorney, attaching everything, GitHub commits from my apartment days, emails proving I'd built the security protocol before Nexus Core hired me, diagrams mapping every node of the system. When I walked into Nathan's office, those files were already with Sarah, my safety net. The morning after my firing, I drove to Sarah's office in Northwest Portland, the city waking under a drizzle. Her conference table was a battlefield of my work, version logs, architecture sketches, emails where I'd told Nathan about my pre-existing protocol. "You're a pack rat, Raya," Sarah said, her eyes gleaming over her coffee cup. "This is gold." I traced a diagram, my fingers lingering on the lines I'd drawn years ago. "Mom taught me to keep receipts," I said softly. Sarah leaned forward. "So, what's the play?" "Revenge." I shook my head. "Not revenge. Justice. I want to be ready when they realize they can't function without me." Sarah grinned. "They'll come crawling. And we'll be waiting." For the first time in days, I felt the knot in my chest loosen, replaced by a spark of purpose. For the first time in years, I woke to sunlight instead of an alarm, the quiet of my Selwood apartment wrapping me like a blanket. No Slack pings, no urgent emails, just the hum of my coffee maker and the scent of fresh grounds. I made pancakes, the kind Mom used to make, and ate them on my balcony, watching joggers along the Willamette. Freedom felt strange, like a coat I hadn't worn in years, but I slipped into it, savoring the fit. I met Sarah at a cafe in the Pearl District, where hipsters typed novels on laptops and the air smelled of roasted beans. "They're already floundering," she said, sliding her tablet across the table. Nexus Core's client dashboard had crashed twice that week, social media buzzing with complaints. My shorthand documentation was a riddle Ryan couldn't solve. "Let them stew," Sarah advised. "The worse it gets, the stronger your position." I nodded, sipping my latte, feeling a flicker of power. I wasn't just a fired engineer. I was the keeper of Nexus Core's pulse. Between job listings, I met with other Portland startups, not for offers, but to gauge my worth. A data firm in Beaverton marveled at my portfolio. A cybersecurity outfit downtown hinted at a partnership. Each meeting chipped away at the sting of Nathan's words, replacing it with a quiet confidence. I wasn't running back to Nexus Core, but I wasn't running away either. I was mapping my own path, one careful step at a time, my mother's lessons my compass. Every night I checked my files, ensuring every receipt was in place. I didn't know when Nexus Core would call, but I knew they would. And I'd be ready, not with anger, but with the calm of someone who knows their worth. 3 weeks after I left, my phone buzzed while I sat at a waterfront cafe, the Willamette glinting under a rare sunny sky. Michael Ruiz, Nexus Core's CTO, his voice tight with forced cheer. "Raya, got a minute? The team's got questions about your security protocol." I stirred my coffee, letting the silence stretch. "I'm pretty tied up, Michael," I said, my tone neutral as the river. "Maybe Ryan can handle it." He cleared his throat. "It's specialized. We'd pay for your time." Specialized. A polite way of saying my shorthand was a lock only I held the key to. That evening, an email from Lucas Chin landed in my inbox. Subject line, "It's a mess here." "Raya," he wrote, "the system's crashing. Clients are furious and Nathan's blaming everyone but himself. Ryan's lost. We miss you." I read it twice, my heart tugging for Lucas and the team, good people caught in Nathan's storm. But another part of me, the part that remembered Nathan's smirk, felt a quiet thrill. The platform I'd built was unraveling without me, just as I'd known it would. I called Sarah, reading her Lucas's email. "They're desperate," she said, her voice sharp with strategy. "Let's wait. They'll crack soon." I leaned back, staring at the city lights across the river. I'd given Nexus Core everything: my nights, my ideas, my trust. Now, they were learning what it cost to throw that away. I wasn't gloating, not really. But I felt the scales tipping, and for the first time, they were tipping in my favor. Nathan's call came a week later, his voice strained, the charm fraying. "Raya, we need you back. Consulting, big fee, 6 figures for a few weeks." I stood in my kitchen, chopping vegetables, the knife steady in my hand. "I'm busy, Nathan," I said, echoing my response to Michael. "Good luck." I hung up, my pulse quickening, not with fear but with something fiercer: control. Sarah called that night, her tone electric. "You'll love this. Nathan's been claiming your security protocol as his brainchild to investors. Cascade Ventures bought it hook, line, and sinker." I froze, the knife hovering over a carrot. "He stole my work?" I whispered, the betrayal cutting deeper than I'd expected. "He did," Sarah said. "But your GitHub commits predate Nexus Core. We've got him." My mother's face flashed in my mind, her hands folding laundry instead of coding. I wouldn't let that be me. Nexus Core's stock had tanked 15% in a week, their Twitter flooded with client complaints about outages. I scrolled through the posts, each one a crack in Nathan's facade. I wasn't vindictive, but I felt a spark of satisfaction, like striking a match in the dark. Sarah and I mapped our next move, her legal mind as sharp as my code. "We hold the line," she said. "They'll come to us." I nodded, staring at my laptop, the GitHub repository open, a digital vault of my truth. I wasn't just fighting for me, I was fighting for Mom, for every coder whose work had been stolen. And I was winning. The doorbell rang as I lounged on my couch, a documentary flickering on the TV. Claire Donovan stood on my porch, her tailored coat damp from Portland's drizzle. "Miss Harper," she said, her eyes serious, "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. May I come in?" I hesitated, then let her in, my heart pounding. Claire was Cascade Ventures' lead investor, a woman I'd only seen in boardroom pitches, her questions always sharp. She sat on my couch, declining coffee. "Nexus Core's in trouble," she said bluntly. "The security protocol's failing, and nobody can fix it." Nathan swore he had backups, but he lied. I stayed silent, my face a mask, though my pulse raced. "Worse," she continued, "he claimed he designed the protocol. Our tech advisors say it's yours." A bitter laugh escaped me. "He told you that?" She nodded, her gaze steady. "We invested $10 million based on his story. I need the truth, Raya. Come to our board meeting tomorrow. Tell us what's happening." I leaned back, weighing her words. This was a chance to rewrite my story, but risky. "My attorney, Sarah, would need to be there," I said. Claire agreed instantly. "This isn't a trap. It's about fixing what's broken." After she left, I called Sarah, my voice trembling with possibility. "Send the IP notice tonight," she said. "Walk in with leverage." As I hung up, I felt the weight of Mom's lessons, the strength of my own work. Tomorrow, I'd face Nathan, not as an employee, but as the architect of his downfall. The Nexus Core office hadn't changed: same glass walls, same hum of ambition, but walking in with Sarah felt like stepping onto a battlefield. The boardroom was tense, faces tight around the mahogany table. Claire greeted us, while Nathan sat at the head, his usual swagger gone. Michael looked exhausted, his tie loose. Sarah set her briefcase down, her voice cool. "We sent a notice of retained IP rights last night. Let's proceed in good faith." Nathan's face reddened. "This is ridiculous. Raya's contract says her work belongs to Nexus Core." I met his eyes, calm but unyielding. "The security protocol? I built it before I joined. I've got the GitHub commits to prove it." Sarah projected my laptop screen, showing timestamps from my apartment days, emails where I'd told Nathan about my pre-existing code. The board leaned forward, murmuring. Victor Lang, an investor, frowned at Nathan. "You knew about this?" I switched to Nathan's investor slides, my name erased from the protocol's credits. "This was pitched as Nathan's vision," I said, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "But I built it." Michael spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. "Raya's right. Without her, we're dead in the water." Nathan's glare faltered, the room shifting against him. Sarah added, the IP notice stands. Without Raya's consent, your platform's unusable. I felt Mom's pride in me, her lessons alive in every word. I wasn't just reclaiming my work, I was rewriting the story they tried to steal. The boardroom debate stretched for hours, Nathan's defenses crumbling under the weight of my evidence. Victor Lang called a recess, the board huddling behind closed doors. When they returned, Claire's voice cut through the silence. We've made decisions. Nathan, your misrepresentations have cost us trust. You're out as CEO. Nathan's face drained of color, his mouth opening, then closing. Second, Raya, we're offering you CTO, with equity and a licensing deal for your protocol, including royalties. My heart thudded, a mix of shock and vindication. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table, her nod subtle but triumphant. Finally, Claire said, we'll issue a public statement crediting Raya as the protocol's architect. Nathan stood, his voice bitter. You're giving her the company. I met his eyes, my voice soft but firm. No, Nathan. I'm taking back what's mine. He stormed out, the doors slam echoing like a gavel. I accepted the offer, not for revenge, but for the chance to build something honest. As I drove home, Portland's bridges glowing in the dusk, I felt Mom's presence, her smile in the rain. I'd kept my promise to her, to myself. Nexus Core wasn't just a company anymore. It was my legacy, one I'd shape with transparency and respect. The weight of Nathan's words, nobody will care, was gone, replaced by a truth I'd fought for. My work mattered, and now everyone would know it. 3 months later, I stood on a stage in Nexus Core's revamped Portland headquarters, addressing our team and a cluster of tech reporters. The air smelled of fresh paint, the office alive with purpose. Today, we launch a new platform update, I said, my voice steady, built on collaboration and truth. My security protocol, once my solitary creation, now thrived under a team I'd trained, their contributions credited in every release note. Our documentation was open, clear no one would ever be indispensable again. Claire approached after, her smile warm. Complaints are down 90%, Raya. Clients are coming back. You've turned this around. I shrugged, pride swelling. It's the team. She raised an eyebrow. Your leadership set the tone. Later, I read an email from Nathan, brief and unexpected. Raya, I was wrong. I should have valued you. Nexus Score's yours now. Nathan. I stared at the words, feeling a pang of empathy. He'd chosen to leave, his new startup faltering, his reputation bruised. I replied simply, Nathan, thanks for the apology. I wish you well. Raya. Closure wasn't about forgiving him. It was about knowing I'd won. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, battles, and breakthroughs. My story's not just about code. It's about fighting for your worth, for the truth that defines you. If this moved you, hit subscribe. Join us. Every line of code, every choice, tells a story of resilience and renewal. Keep building your own truth, and I'll meet you where it shines.